Welcome, everyone. And we'll jump right off and start our conversation with a question for Nia. What are the must-have tools, protocols, and practices every organization should have in place to effectively respond to cyber disasters?
I think, honestly, that really starts with two critical tools that come right to mind, which are your endpoint detection and response, along with your security information and event management platforms, or key modules, which have been emerging in the last few years, which is your cloud incident and event monitoring. These are critical because they focus on the reduction of high-risk scenarios, and you have the ability to then quantify the cost of response time delays to fine-tune recovery protocols, right? So it's very integral, and it's almost like the heartbeat of an organization. So regardless of the size of your organization, I always recommend from a tooling perspective to start there. And then when I look out like beyond in terms of our practices, I think more GRC. So that's more of how are you management so that you can ensure overall compliance. So by prioritizing compliance with relevant regulations that apply to your business structure and flow, you can lean on regulations and standards such as ISO or NIST, or coming and working in the financial spaces, FFIEC, NYDFS are good places to start. But ensuring that everywhere you have a critical process that relates to disaster recovery, business continuity, incident response, we want to make sure those processes are tied into policies and that our management teams understand the defined escalation paths and reporting requirements. And they're able to perform internal regular risk assessments to better align and tune those practices and processes with organizational.
Excellent. And Jim?
Yeah, how about an oxygen mask? So Nia laid out some great tools, I would say like block and tackle foundational tools, and they're definitely critical for a situation in terms of disaster. I think of this basically from like a 5-point high-level situation. I think besides the security monitoring detection systems like the SIM, like the EDR, XDR, even a SOAR system if you want to get fancy with workflowing certain security incidents. I think to begin with, you really have to sit down and understand the core types of plans that you need to have in place, and have to have I would say, ingrained within your organization in order to be ready when one of these things are going to hit, such as you have an incident response plan, which really talks about detection, containment, remediation, and lessons learned. That's something that I'm sure is going to come up later in the conversation. Kind of a base plan for when these things come up, but then you have to kind of think about what if a situation like this is going to spread out a lot more or become more deleterious to your organization. Then you have to think about business continuity, making sure you understand how you're going to keep your business running or return it to normal operations. And besides, the procedures for that, I would say it also accurately ranks the criticality of all your assets that you're trying to protect. And I think one of the conversations I have with a lot of folks is, well, we don't know really how to start ranking our crown jewels or what our most important assets are. And I say, well, don't you have a business continuity plan? And they say, well, yes. I said, well, is everything accurate from a ranking perspective there? And some folks really have to review that because it's been there for a while and they really haven't thought about the criticality of each individual asset as time goes by or as priorities shift. And then from there, making sure that you have good, robust communication protocols. I think the other thing that kind of plays into this is besides the technical kind of recovery plans and response plans that I talked about, we also have a crisis management plan that is kind of parallel, right? It may not be triggered necessarily upon a security incident, but certainly there are elements in both that can interweave, and it certainly fills in the gap when you talk about interdepartmental communication, coordination, call trees, all these different things. Very good tool to help, I would say, supplement and make sure that you've got good harmony and synchronicity with those plans.